I think we're over-promising a little bit in terms of what we think AI can do and how far AI can go, when the capabilities aren't necessarily there. The infrastructure is still being built, and we haven't even discussed how expensive it is, right, to host these data centers, to pay for electricity. And so we're really over-promising on how far we can take AI, where we haven't necessarily come out with everything that we're promising. Like, these companies have just not actualized a lot of their promises.
Hello and welcome to Everyday Data, where we examine currently trending topics in data analytics and AI and how they're shaping our everyday lives. We're your hosts, Patricia and Zach, recent graduates from NYU's MSB AI program and data and pop culture enthusiasts. And today, what are we talking about? We're talking about AI, and is there an AI bubble? So this video is for people that are into tech, but also people not into tech. So I think the AI bubble and the AI industry as a whole is really for everyone, because in 2025, the AI and the influence of AI on other parts of the economy are such a big factor. I think everyone should be aware of what is going on with AI. And yes, the question is there really an AI bubble? Yes or no? So Patricia, I'm going to send it over to you to delve into this topic. Are we in a bubble, and is there a bubble to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the question on everyone's minds. And Zach, you and I were talking about this a little bit. Like, there's suddenly all of these articles, especially in the last couple of weeks, around the AI bubble. Right now, just the landscape, there's a lot of funding that is going into AI companies. We know this. It's the only topic anyone's ever talking about. But with all of these billions of dollars of funding that are going into these AI companies, the AI companies themselves, they're not actually profitable yet. I mean, they say that they're going to be profitable. They are committing to billions of dollars of advancements and funding themselves. Like OpenAI has said that they're going to put billions of dollars into funding. I think they went even into the trillions, but they're actually not profitable yet themselves. And so there's a lot of conversation right now around, there's all of this money that's going into investments into AI companies and into AI technologies. But, does that, when we'll talk about a little bit of the circular nature of the investments themselves, but is there a chance that we are now in an AI bubble? There's lots of money going in. They're not really profitable yet. And so this question's on everyone's mind. There's this AI app developer called Flywheel Studio, and they reported that the search term AI bubble right now, it's the highest it's ever been at any point from when Google first started tracking the data. And the news is very there's news stories that support both sides, that there is an AI bubble and that there isn't an AI bubble. And there are big name individuals that we know that have something to say about it. So Bill Gates, he went on CNBC and he said that the current excitement around AI resembles the .com buzz a lot. And I think that's going to come up a lot around the .com boom and that bubble. And he suggested that a lot of the investments that are going into AI right now might actually end up being a dead end. And then Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI himself, he also said that investors right now are overexcited about AI, and that's what happened during the .com bubble as well. So that's one side of the story. On the other side, we have Goldman Sachs. Everyone listens to Goldman Sachs, right? And Goldman Sachs says that right now there is no AI bubble yet. So do the CEOs of NVIDIA and AMD. I mean, I feel like they're a little bit biased, and we can get into that later. I mean, they're profiting big time from these investments. But then there's also people in the middle, and I feel like I want us to talk about this a little bit as well, is Mark Zuckerberg said that AI could turn into a bubble. And there's quite a lot of, big time investors, business leaders who I feel like I've heard this side as well, is that they say that AI could turn into a bubble. And the way that we can avoid a crash is by making sure that our companies are actually making advancements and that demand continues to grow. And so there's that side of it as well. So I feel like there's lots of kind of pathways that people feel like this AI bubble predictions could go down. And so these are sort of the three that kind of pop out to me right now. So Zach, what have you been hearing? What do you think? I know you've read a bunch of articles yourself. So what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, that's an interesting point too, with all these experts you name. And then you always, of course, have to think critically, right? That's one of the things that as an informed decision maker, anyone should be questioning your sources. So when you hear someone like Sam Altman, I mean, yes, he's CEO, but it's his job to generate buzz about a company. So you kind of take this a little bit with a grain of salt. That's why it's good, as you brought up, some other people on other sides of these deals. But the problem is right now, and why this is becoming more and more of a discussion point, is that it's a bubble with just these 7 companies. All the people kind of you named at the most part. You have the Magnificent Seven, which are, at least from the U.S. perspective, which admittedly does have a large influence on the global economy, but the Magnificent Seven are really driving the entire U.S. economy. And I think it's just the general population of small-time investors and the big, of course, large institutional investors like your Goldman Sachs, but also your pension funds and all the other big institutional investors, is that we've seen this bull run on the stock market where it just keeps growing when the everyday sentiment of the people are also reading the jobs reports about companies laying off left and right. The latest jobs report that was today from ADP, because if you're in the U.S., yes, government shutdown. So you have a government shutdown cutting out benefits to low income. You have ADP providing private data that payroll is lower again because there's no government data at the moment for the U.S. But then at the same time, the stock market is booming, and it's driven by these companies, which, as you mentioned, Patricia, is a very circular investment cycle where NVIDIA is supplying the chips that OpenAI is using, and OpenAI is investing back in NVIDIA, who are investing back into OpenAI, and they're all investing in each other. And so the public opinion is now, some people are questioning, is this circular investing? Is this, a bubble going to pop? Are we seeing the rise? But at the same time, if you're even a small investor like ourselves, you still want to catch the gains while you can. It doesn't really make sense to cash out when, these markets are at an all-time high. But the counterpoint was, so this is recording on November 11th. The news today was SoftBank, who it's a large Japanese company that they have a large investment arm. They're one of these huge conglomerates in Japan. They just sold their entire stake in NVIDIA. So things like that makes you question that, is the ride over? Are we nearing the end? And is there kind of this bifurcation of the economy, this K-shaped recovery where some people are going really well, which is, these stock companies, but then you have the jobs market and everything else. And when that happens, is there going to be some market correction, which is, again, the bubble? So is this bubble going to burst? Like, as you mentioned, is like the dot-com bubble back in the day and any other, the housing market bubble where we had this big rush of enthusiasm to make money and then something eventually had to give. So, is this a bubble? That's the question. I think we'll first maybe argue is, are we in a bubble?
Okay, so first of all, I just want to make a comment that I think that you need to put up the image, because when you were talking of the circular nature of the relationship between OpenAI and NVIDIA and the rest of them, there really is this beautifully complex image of how that relationship is going around. And I think what kind of lends to this whole bubble argument is just this piece of how, first of all, it literally looks like all these little bubbles of investment. Okay, these companies are just investing into each other. So it seems like there are all of these, you don't really have an idea, what I want to say is, of the profits of the Magnificent Seven, like you were mentioning, right? It seems like OpenAI is doing really well. It seems like NVIDIA is doing really well, but all of these companies are just investing in each other. We don't really know what the nature of growth is. We've already seen the investments from other companies back out, like you mentioned. And also, we know, and we talked about this a little bit last week too, that AI has not really even realized its full potential. Like, we're still so early in AI, but the investment into AI is moving so quickly. And there are so many companies coming up right now. And a lot of these AI startups, a lot of the companies that are large, that are also investing in AI, I think we're over promising a little bit in terms of what we think AI can do and how far AI can go when the capabilities aren't necessarily there. The infrastructure is still being built, and we haven't even discussed how expensive it is, right, to host these data centers, to pay for electricity. And so we're really over promising on how far we can take AI, where we haven't necessarily come out with everything that we're promising. Like, these companies have just not actualized a lot of their promises. OpenAI itself is not even profitable yet. And so I think I can understand that bubble piece where there are so many players in the game right now, and it's just not possible that all of these companies are going to be successful. And I understand what Bill Gates is saying, in that there are going to be those dead ends investments where companies aren't going to be able to meet what they're promising. And that happened during the .com boom as well. Like, exactly. there were these startups, right? They just created a website and went public. And it's like, that's not, and hopefully we learn from that. And I do think that even if AI is a bubble, even if this AI economy is a bubble, or this industry, is a bubble, I do think that, and you kind of hear this when you read articles and watch YouTube videos, is that I do think that there's this aspect of like, okay, well, we know what happened during the .com boom, and we want to be a little bit mindful of that. So I do think that things will be a little bit different, but I do think that we are investing at an extremely high rate when these AI companies aren't necessarily going to match that in terms of their output.
Yeah. I mean, that's the classic phrase, right? That history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And yeah, you see the parallels with the .com. I mean, yes, I'm a little bit older, so I vividly remember the .com era because I was in college or just about to start college, and it influenced my major because you're seeing, the classic example of like socks.com or pets.com. Yeah, that they crashed and burned. It sounds very similar, like you said, all these startups. So it does feel, I 100% agree with everything you said. It feels a little similar as someone who lived through the .com bust, or boom and bust of, this investment, that all these companies, especially startups, and as you said, these startups, they're getting all this VC funding and they're creating, this AI powered something. And then OpenAI or another model just creates that same thing within one of the frontier models. And then the startup just crashes and burned. So there's going to be the winners and losers, and that hype for the investment. It's maybe a good thing. So maybe I'm getting off track, and that's maybe why it's not a bubble and it's just a normal economic cycle, that you're going to have winners and losers in any hot industry, and people are trying to just throw money at the winners. And that, I think, is what contributes to the bubble aspect. Is if you put AI in your title, your startup, you get funding, right? It's not necessarily based on the fundamentals, or as you mentioned, like value proposition or something with real users and real recurring revenue, which was kind of the classic not blunder, but maybe that like downfall, I guess is the better word, of some of these startup early internet companies, where they were getting valuations based on projected growth and not actual users, not actual revenue. They don't actually have, advertisers or users. It's just on the projection that, you've signed up, 1,000 users in 10 days because, you got advertised somewhere, you got social media buzz. But is there long-term value in these companies? Should we be throwing, not we, but maybe should VC firms be throwing millions at it just because it has AI in the title? And it's good and bad. And I think we can start arguing why it's not. But do you have any other final thoughts before we start maybe like the counterpoint?
No, I agree with everything that you said. It's the hype. right?
Yeah.
Like the pace of how things are going is based on
just
hype and optimism. And I think that's what kind of lends itself to that bubble theory. Also, the amount of change that companies are implementing, all of these layoffs, like I find it difficult to believe that AI at the rate, at the scale that it's at right now is truly one for one getting rid of all these jobs. And I've seen some articles that there are several companies out there that after having done these layoffs have regrets because their AI is not matching the output of people. And so I do think that there's an aspect of dangerous that kind of lends itself to that bubble theory. But yeah, let's go into the AI is not a bubble. And I think you made a really good point in that this is technology. This is the advancement of technology.
Yeah.
We live in the age of technology. And so this is how things go. Like when there's a new advancement, everyone gets in on the game, and there are losers and there are winners. And actually, in Bill Gates' CNBC interview, he kind of talks about that, where it was a very short interview. It's honestly worth watching because it's super short and he kind of gets to the point. He was like, AI is the most important technological advancement that we've had as a society. And I was like, okay, wow, that's really big. Like, I think there are other ones too, but I totally agree in that, the intelligence of it is so important. And so it's not like it's not going to go anywhere. Like, it's here to stay. Like the internet, same thing, was here to stay. And yes, there are some players that are going to make it and that are not going to make it, but isn't that just capitalism?
Yeah, exactly. So while we said, yes, it mirrors the dot-com boom, but the dot-com boom didn't necessarily crash the economy. I think, at least the U.S. economy. I think obviously the big thing that crashed it was the housing markets, and this is more akin on the technology side. So it does have that boom of an investing industry, a lot of outside investment in these firms. But as you said, there's going to be winners. Then yes, this is like the build-up phase. And the analogy that I think it was a Reddit comment just following this, that people were talking about AI in general, that it's actually, if you think of other recent tech industry booms that really drove the industry, it was a discussion on jobs and what skills you need. If you look back to the last couple major booms after the .com, they were cloud and then blockchain. And I think those are two really good ways to, if you're familiar with tech, if you the viewer that are watching this, if you're familiar with other previous cycles in the tech industry, for a while, and even now, there's a big push for everyone to go to the cloud. That was the early days of, cloud was the future, and it just made sense to, move your data off premise from your local company, put it in the cloud so you have redundancy and you can outsource all of that maintenance. And then it just changed the way websites are built because now you have, cloud deployments and DevOps, and it just, expanded the whole industry, and everyone rushed to the cloud. There's a lot of money that was made at the beginning. That is how, AWS, that's how Amazon makes a large chunk of their money with cloud computing. Still a big driver for Microsoft with Azure, with Google, with GCP, Google Cloud Platform. These are the huge, bedrocks of the tech industry that are still cash cows for these companies. And you can see AI to be similar to that in the sense that, like, as you said, it's here to stay. Like cloud, we're not going back to on-premise data centers. Cloud is here to stay. It became the way that we build modern apps in the web 3.0, or are we 4.0 now? Cloud is part of it. And I think that's an argument of how, yes, it's a hype industry right now, but it's not a bubble because it's fundamentally changing how we're going to look at, an aspect of the tech industry. And I think maybe another way for a casual viewer to look at this, it might, just like the cloud doesn't really affect your everyday life away from the computer, AI, for the most part, or maybe not, isn't going to affect your outside life away from your devices, that you're going to use it maybe for coding, for questions, but it may not. Again, this is maybe another counterpoint.
Use friend.com.
Your life. Yeah. So that's a good counterpoint. But I think there's the last point about why this is maybe not a bubble is because the other last boom that I remember vividly, because it was only like 3 or 4 years ago, was blockchain. That
Yeah.
was this huge bubble, and that was insulated to just the blockchain NFT. It didn't really bleed over into the general economy. There's a lot of social media hype, and if you remember, like NFTs, like the digital art that people bought for millions of dollars for the apes and stuff, and now they're worth like pennies, because why would you pay so much for an NFT? It was an interesting technology, but it was not a fundamental shift in the way cloud was or AI is. So it's similar, but like whereas blockchain was maybe really a bubble. Cloud. I think cloud to AI is a better analogy of kind of the fundamentally shifting how we work with computers and technology.
Yeah, and I feel like this is where I kind of understand where Mark Zuckerberg is coming from when he says that we're on the cusp and we can avoid it. Like maybe we're not in a full bubble, because as long as we're advancing and growing and as long as there's demand. And I think that is what is really important, is that, that beautiful balance between supply and demand, to take you back to grade 10 economics. Like it really does come down to that. And I think that I can understand this side of the coin as well, because there are more competitors coming into the game. There are lots of chips being made. When we think about data centers, when we think about chips, like it's just, hopefully this is an industry that there will be lots of fluctuations in and lots of growth in, and that the demand also continues. And I think that that is also an important argument too. If we can keep that momentum, then maybe this is just maybe we're just thinking of the boom as, oh, this could go into a bubble, but we can avoid that.
Yeah, I think that once people figure out, I mean like companies and everyday people, figure out the way that we're going to work with AI going forward, things will start to stabilize. But as you said, there's still like real value being created. Like the data centers are real projects that are, yes, also driving the U.S. economy with the creation of data centers. Not to talk yet about environmental impacts or societal impacts of these data centers popping up everywhere, but these are physical products. NVIDIA, again, the argument why it's not a bubble, they're physical chips. As you mentioned, there's competitors. Google is creating their AI chips. You can use the Amazon created AI chips when you select it in your cloud services. So it is a whole ecosystem. It is driven by a small set of companies. So yes, it could be a bubble with that Magnificent Seven, but there are enough, I think, diversification within this. It's not a total monopoly.
So I think when we think about like what comes next for the people that are watching, that, they're like, okay, if it's a bubble, if it's not a bubble, like what does that matter to me? I really think even if it is a bubble and it crashes or bursts, even if it's not, I think when we think about how it impacts the day to day, realistically, a bubble bursting is mostly just going to affect companies and their valuations. But AI as a tool is here to stay. I think we need to make that clear, because when you're reading the news, right, you might say, oh, the AI bubble might burst. That's going to be great for me. I can take advantage of this. Like, I still have a job. And yes, you totally do. I totally understand that. But I think we need to approach it in a way that, well, AI is still here to stay, and AI is still going to change the way that we live our lives and work. And so when we think about, even if the AI bubble is going to burst, there are still going to be winners in that space. And maybe and this is my thinking, so tell me what you think about this. Like maybe it kind of strips down to, I think we've thought of like all of the sexy side of AI and all of the sexy aspects of AI, but there is like the simple layer or the simple functions of AI, which is, automation, data analysis, machine learning. And I think being skilled and understanding those aspects of AI is going to be what is important for people, considering all the noise of the news when it comes to like the AI industry booming or the bubble bursting or whatever. So I think that the skills that are going to be really important for people to know, you kind of have to scale back to the basics of AI. So like data analysis, machine learning, automation, like these are going to be the skills that are very important for people to understand and to know amidst all the noise of the news of like the AI boom or the AI bubble bursting, like at the end of the day, we still need to know these things. So get to Googling.
Yeah, and I think another like aspect you sort of touched on, but just to drive home that point for what does this mean to the everyday person, when I think it's a case of when, not if, when the AI bubble, maybe say burst, deflates a bit. Maybe when the numbers come down, as we said earlier, there's still physical things that were created during this. So there were, as you said, data centers, there were AI chips that were created. There were, all this created. Yes, the individual jobs of like an AI engineer specialized in creating models may not be as prevalent, but as you said, I think the fundamentals will always be there. And another thing that also, again, how does this relate to me or, your regular everyday person? And this is not financial advice, but I think everyone, again, should be diversified as the best practice in their investment strategy. So don't lose the momentum of some of these companies. But at the same time, as we said at the top of this discussion, big players like SoftBank are exiting their positions. If you've been following the U.S. stock market, tech stocks are getting, there's this trend right now of tech stocks losing some of their investments as large institutional investors rotate to more fundamentals. So this is all up in the air as of November. Things could change on a day with tariffs or the stock market. But as you said, at the end of the day, yes, the stock market changed. But as you rightly called out, Patricia, you still have a job that, yes, their stock price might go down, and you as the person at home, like your 401k might go down because of the valuation, but the fundamentals are there. The infrastructure was created, was built. These large language models, the frontier models, have already been trained. ChatGPT 5 is already created. And he said, there's going to be some winners. So yes, the smaller companies are probably going to lose, just like the dot-com bubble. Not every company survived that we did have the winners. That's what led to Web 2.0 with like the social web, where you've got just the Googles, the Metas, these large companies that emerged, and the smaller players left. But there's still, at the end of the day, it evolved for the next cycle, and then there's going to be another innovation in the future. So to be optimistic that this is just the next wave, there's going to be a down, and then there's going to, hopefully be another, rise with whatever the next technology is after AI.
To be determined. So let us know, do you think we're in an AI bubble or not? Do you think the AI bubble is going to burst? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, comment down below and share your thoughts. Thanks, Trisha. This is an awesome discussion. Really, I had a great time talking today.
Yay, me too. Okay, bye.
Bye.